Welcome to Right on Track, a songwriting podcast. Thanks to Tone for tuning in. I'm Demi Michelle Schwartz, and I'm thrilled you're joining me on my songwriting journey. So kick back and relax, don't fall flat, and remember, stay right on track. Hey everyone, welcome back to Right on Track. Joining me today is Brady Seals. Hey Brady.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. How's it going for you?
It's going really, really good. I've got a lot of stuff happening in my world these days, but it's good to talk to you.
Yeah, of course. And it's awesome to hear you have a lot going on in your world because that gives us a lot to talk about today. And before we dive into everything specifically, can you share with the listeners a little about yourself and how you got started in music?
Wow. Well, gosh, I've been doing this such a long time. It's kind of hard to go back to the beginning, but basically, I started playing music when I was like 9 years old. I went into the studio for the first time when I was 15. Started writing songs back then. I went out on the road actually when I was 16, my 11th grade year of high school. And I went out on the road with the promise that I would take night school and graduate with my class, which is exactly what I did. So I kind of got a year start on everybody, getting out there and doing what I love. And looking back on it now, I'm thinking, how in the world did my mom and dad let me do that? But it was so cool. So I went out on the road with a guy named Josh Logan. He was a country artist, signed to MCA Curb Records at the time, and I just thought it was my big break. I'm like, I got to go do this. So I did, and stayed with him for a couple of years. Then I met up with a 50s and 60s band called the Varsities, which would become Little Texas, right? So I was with Little Texas for about 6 years, one of the original members. Little Texas got signed to Warner Brothers, and it was just a magical time. Just all of the stars aligned for us, and we had many number ones and many top 10, top 5 songs and stuff, and it was just amazing. We were able to go on and do all kinds of stuff during that time. Early on in Little Texas's career, we did Star Search, right? Which was back then, that was the American Idol of the 80s and 90s. So we did that. We were finalists back then, and it kind of catapulted us into touring a lot, and we were just touring nonstop. And then we got opening positions for Clint Black. We went out on the road with Billy Cyrus back in the day. We and then we did a big gigantic tour with Travis Tritt and Trisha Yearwood called the Rock and Country Tour. And then we can go on from there, but that's kind of like how it all kind of started, and for me to actually become a pro.
I love that. So I'm really interested to hear how your experience was touring at such a young age because when somebody gets thrown into the music business young like that, it can be a mixed bag of experiences. So for you, what was it like to go out on the road as being only 16 years old?
Well, of course, it was eye opening. I grew up, Pentecostal, going to church every Sunday and Wednesday, and so going out on the road was such a huge contrast to what I had grown up doing, and I saw the world for what it really was and experienced some pretty crazy times, and so it was definitely a shock for my system, but at the same time, I had grown up and was kind of rooted into the gospel and kind of knowing my place, even though I had went off track several times throughout the years for sure. But it was cool. It was cool for me to be able to see the world and experience a whole new life, and it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. And you mentioned Little Texas, but you've also been a part of some other groups and musical projects over the years, and also touching on some various genres. So, how would you say that the various experiences you have and the various genres that you performed has helped shape you into the artist you are today?
Well, it's a great question. People ask me all the time, especially new and up and comers. They'll say, do you have any advice and so on and so forth. And my biggest advice always is, not only just kind of staying true to yourself, but it's knowing the history of music itself, not just the genre that you're in, but just music. I mean, for me, I've always been such a lover of rock and roll and smooth jazz, adult contemporary, Christian music, country music. I mean, just all of it. I really tried to school myself on everything, and I think that it really does shape you as an artist and as a songwriter. So I think that, like I said, I think that the best thing that I can advise is, just to experience it all, know it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely had a transformation myself because growing up, I primarily listened to pop music and not really other genres. But as I got older, I started to realize that every genre has a place and every genre has an audience. And I think once I really started to get into music myself, I started to realize how important it is to respect and appreciate other genres and explore other genres because it just makes you a better songwriter, a better musician, and a better person too, I think. And I know there's a lot of ideas in the industry about sticking to one genre and this and that, but I think we live in a world today where many people appreciate different genres and listen to different genres, so not being afraid to really learn and explore on our own is important.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's like being, if you're going to call yourself a driver, you're not going to stay on one road, are you?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And I think that that's the thing. You have to experience uh, straightaways. You have to experience turns and twists. You got to experience back roads and country roads and different kinds of you know asphalt and gravel and dirt, and then you can start to call yourself a driver.
Right. No, that's a really great analogy. I love that so much. So, over the years, how have you gone about developing your songwriting process? Do you have a specific process or does it vary from project to project?
It really does vary from project to project. Normally I'm a title guy. I love to start with titles. It just kind of invokes a particular direction, a particular idea, and I catch myself sometimes going into bookstores and just strolling through all of the different kind of book titles, and it's not like that I will actually steal the title of whatever the book is, but it will kind of it'll kind of branch off into my own version of what the book title is, and it'll spark so many titles for me that'll just all of a sudden the blueprint in my head will just kind of like, okay, yeah, that'd be a cool song. So that's how I normally do it, but every now and then, I think that it all depends too on the co-writers that you get with, because if they come to the table with like this really great groove, uh, or a cool melody or something like that, then all of a sudden that kind of sparks some things as well. So I think that you have to be versatile as a writer.
Yeah, I love that. And going back to what you were saying earlier about, driving on different kind of roads to be a driver, I think the same can be said with the songwriting process. And if you write only one way every time, that's going to sooner or later create a block. If you only write from titles, well, maybe you won't get inspired from a melody or a groove or just a personal experience. So I love hearing
Absolutely.
how you are super open to maybe you love to write from titles, but you're not opposed to starting songs in other ways.
Absolutely. I think that it all depends. I know that there's a lot of pop kind of players and writers out there that really start with grooves, or
Mhm.
melodies. And so I'm certainly not opposed to that and have done it so many times over the years. It's just when I do it by myself, when I'm just writing by myself, I usually start with the title.
Mhm.
That's just me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, how do you find that co-writing helps you develop as a songwriter by yourself? Because I too, I love collaboration, and it's different when you're writing with other writers versus when you're writing by yourself, but they both can help strengthen in different areas of the process. So, what's that like for you?
Well, it's very similar to playing guitar by yourself or playing guitar in a band. You know, it's two different animals, you know. But both can be very, very satisfying. You know, I think that you just have to kind of like be prepared to get into different kind of modes when you're being, in a room with somebody. You have to be a little bit more um politically correct. You have to be a little bit more open. You have to compromise sometimes when sometimes maybe you don't want to. Um, I've heard this killer quote over the years. Roger Miller, the famous Roger Miller, he would always write songs by himself. That's just kind of how he did it. I had heard through the grapevine that his manager or publisher, I forget which, had asked him one time, hey Roger, there's this person that's really wanting to co-write with you. And Roger's response was, "Well, did Van Gogh co-paint?" So I think that people have to really kind of go with their own heart. Do you want to compromise? Or do you want to just do it the way that you want to do it? I think that it all depends on the kind of writing style that you're in, and the genre that you're in. I know that country is geared a little bit towards, or a little bit more towards co-writing, and so is pop music.
Hmm.
You know, now if you're a jazzer, and you're sitting around and you're writing melodies and so on and so forth, that may be a little bit more by yourself kind of thing. So it just all depends on the genre and the kind of vibe you're going for.
Hmm. Yeah, and I also think it depends on the song you want to write because I've had a couple songs where I just really had a vision for it. It was super personal for me, and I just felt that I'd be able to write it the best myself because I fully experienced whatever I was writing about and I had a very clear vision. But for other things, it might be easier to co-write if you're maybe stuck on something or you want to take something in a direction you're not quite sure how, or you just want to go into a co-write and see what happens where there's a little more freedom. I think those instances it's fun to co-write and it's better to co-write, but I found like if I'm writing something super personal that is even difficult for me to talk about with other people, it's easier to write it by myself.
Absolutely. And, being an artist writer, I think that it's a whole lot easier to write by yourself because you're
Yeah.
just able to kind of go in a particular direction that you want to go into.
Mhm.
Now, however, if you're more of like a token writer that's going to be stepping in to help an artist writer kind of develop their sound, or maybe slip into a little something that they're maybe not familiar with or whatever, then writing with an artist can be very, very cool and very lucrative, may I add too, because as songwriters, I mean, we're constantly trying to pitch songs. I mean, when you're not pitching it to yourself, of course, when you're just writing for the market, if you will, you're constantly trying to pitch songs. And these days, it just seems that artists, kind of want to be a part of the songwriting process. So getting in a room with an artist, I think is pretty important if you're just a songwriter. I think that it kind of lets you get into the head of the artist and let you know what you need to do artistically to make them happy. You know.
Right, exactly. And I think too in that instance, not every artist is a songwriter. And so they could be really struggling to tell their story and they need another songwriter to help them do that. And I think like you said, just me personally, I probably would never record a song that was just pitched to me because I'm very hands-on and I'm a songwriter first. I always have been. And so it's important for me to be part of the process, but pitching to another artist, maybe a song obviously written with them, with another songwriter, is going to land probably better than just a song pitched to them that maybe is super lucky and they resonate with it. So I completely agree with that point.
Absolutely, yeah, because and as songwriters, I think that we take a lot of pride in what we do, and we
Mhm.
and we understand the actual process, the hours that we put into learning the craft, and so on and so forth. But we also have to be very, very open and real about the entertainment industry. I mean, you kind of look back at some of the greats in the industry. I mean, Elvis Presley was not a songwriter, neither
No.
was Whitney Houston, or George Strait, So I think that we have to appreciate the entertainers out there and kind of fit in, help them, try to kind of bring out their best voice. Write songs that they feel like they believe.
Mhm.
Because as we all know, if you're just singing a song and you're not believing the lyrics, then it's just not going to
Oh,
feel
right.
right, and it probably won't make the project. So I think that it's songwriters' jobs really to kind of do the framework, just like carpenters would building a house. That's the pride that you take. You know.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of singing things that you believe, let's shift gears into your single, Deeper Shade of Blue Collar, which is definitely a special one for you. So, what inspired this song?
Well, hard workers. That's really what it was. I grew up in Fairfield, Ohio. My dad was from Kentucky, and his whole family was from Kentucky. My mom's family was from Kentucky, and we come from a long line of farmers and coal miners. And my grandpa was a sharecropper. He was a coal miner, died of black lung. My dad drove a coal mining truck, and he worked at Fisher Body, which is GM, for 26 years as a crane operator. I grew up just really seeing firsthand what hard work can do, and I always admired it, and I sort of kind of think that what I do is blue collar. Even though I'm not out digging ditches, and I'm not paving roads, and turning wrenches inside of an engine, but at the same time, being out on the road really, it's hard work. It's actually more mentally exhausting than physically. But I've always had a deep, deep appreciation for blue collar workers, and so I don't know. Me and Bill White wrote this song. His wife Kathy had brought this title to us, and I just love the title. I was like, oh man, we got to write this thing, and so we did, and and actually I wrote it many years ago, and you know, just here recently, within the last year or whatever, I started to kind of rework it. I re-sang it, remixed it, the whole bit or whatever, and I just love the song.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting how you wrote it years ago and then kind of waited until the right moment to share it.
I've done that several times in my life. Actually, the song "Hillbillies Love It in the Hay," which was the single that I released when I fronted the band Hot Apple Pie, I had written that song 15 years earlier,
Wow.
and it had been sitting around just like on this little cassette. That's how old it was, and it was sitting around on this little cassette, and I'd heard it, and I was like, oh my gosh, man, there's something there, and sure enough, we cut it, and it became something. So yeah, just I mean, I've always said, don't be afraid of those old ones, man.
Yeah.
The old ones will surprise you sometimes.
Mhm, absolutely. So when you decided to eventually release Deeper Shade of Blue Collar, what was the whole recording process like for you?
Well, we actually went in and recorded this years ago with this new artist that I was working with. He was from the Ohio area. His name was Coy Taylor, And Coy had asked me, "Hey, will you produce some sides on me? And do you have a song maybe that I could record?" And I said, "Well, matter of fact, I do." So it was Deeper Shade of Blue Collar, and we went in, and of course we had all of the A players here in Nashville on the session, and just did this killer little track. And Coy had released it years and years and years ago, and it was an independent release, so nothing really happened with it. And I thought, man, I still I still have to do something with that song. And so that's the thing. I just felt like, by God, it needs to be able to see the light of day again. And so we just had to go in, and like I said, I re-sang some things. I rewrote some of the lyrics on the chorus and stuff, and just, I don't know, the song has always meant something to me, and hopefully it keeps on doing well for me as well.
That's such a fascinating story. I had no idea it was previously released. That's so interesting, and I love how you weren't, like hesitant to release it because it was already released. I think it's really awesome when, like an artist releases a song, but then down the road, the songwriter releases their version because it still means a lot to them. That's so interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, absolutely. I think covers of songs that's been released before. I think, good Lord, I mean, how many times have we seen that happen over the years, and it feels just fine? I mean, goodness gracious, like, well, look at what Whitney Houston did with Dolly's
Oh, yeah, I
version.
know.
See what I mean? So it's like, good gosh, you can't be afraid of great songs. Just keep on releasing them because they're great.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So, if there's one thing that listeners could take away from Deeper Shade of Blue Collar, what do you hope that is?
Well, I think, again, I think believability. I was trying my best to really, kind of get in the mind of a blue collar worker, and try to say all of the things that need to be said. I mean, I was certainly coming more from a Appalachian kind of place, because that's where my family comes from. My dad grew up in a log cabin where, they didn't have much money growing up or whatever, and the log cabin that they grew up in, there was these little holes in the floor and stuff, and my dad would always tell this story where my grandma had to boil water on this black belly, or little black potbelly stove, and she'd have to pour the water down in those holes because the rattlesnakes would try to crawl up through those holes
Oh my
into the
gosh.
log cabin. That's right. So I think to myself, my gosh, man, these sharecroppers had it hard. I mean, not only did they have to go out there and work all day long and harvest, whatever they had to eat, and then hopefully sell just a little bit to make, ends meet and stuff. So it was a hard way to go, and I just wanted to kind of give them a little bit of recognition, because if it weren't for blue collar workers, I don't think America could be America.
No. Well, yeah, thank you for sharing that too. I mean, just like the way you're talking, I can definitely hear the passion in your voice and how much this means to you. And this song, like you said, like you're recognizing them through song, and that is one of the most, if not the most amazing things. I love it when songs pay tribute to somebody, recognize somebody, appreciate someone. Like putting that in a song is truly special. So I'm so happy you did this.
Thank you so much. Again, I feel honored to at least, um, spread the word and the gospel about how these people make the world go around. You know.
Absolutely. So, looking ahead to the rest of 2023, I can't believe we're more than halfway through the year so far. What is next for you this year?
Well, next is this really cool project that I've had going for probably 4 or 5 years now, and that is Seals and Crofts 2. Me and Dash Crofts' daughter, Lua Crofts, um, we go out as Seals and Crofts too. We do a lot of theaters and places like that, and we of course we play all of the hits like Diamond Girl, Summer Breeze, We May Never Pass This Way Again, Get Closer, all of those songs, and it's just been amazing to carry the torch on because I am cousins with Jimmy of Seals and Crofts, and of course her dad is Dash, and so it's not a tribute act; it's a legacy act, So it's really 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 cool to be able to go out there and do that, and for the longest time we would just go and play the hits. Well, last year we thought, you know what, maybe we ought to do an original song or 2 or 3, and so we started looking into my catalog, I started asking around to some of my songwriter friends and, trying to get something that would, just kind of go hand in hand with the Seals and Crofts legacy, but kind of, like, move it along to 2023, and, so we've got a single coming out called "Run Into the Sun" probably in about a month or 2, and, so we're very, very excited about that to be able to release something and, let people know that the story continues.
That's so awesome. It's so cool how you come from such a musical family. And like you said, this is a legacy band, not a tribute band. I think it's so awesome. You said it perfectly, carrying the torch and bringing a new spin to old favorites.
Well, absolutely, and the whole Seals and Crofts 2 thing happened because I was sitting around, creating at the time what was called the Seals Family Album. It was just a little title that I had in my head and this idea that I had where I would take 3 songs by Jimmy Seals, 3 songs by Dan Seals, which is Jimmy's brother. Dan had all of those songs like, Everything That Glitters Is Not Gold, and You Still Move Me, and Bop, and Meet Me in Montana, just all these great songs. So I was going to do 3 songs by Dan and then 3 songs by Troy Seals, which is my uncle.
Oh,
And
wow.
Troy, he's a songwriter Hall of Famer. Troy wrote songs like Who's Gonna Fill Their Shoes, uh, Seven Spanish Angels, Lost in the 50s Tonight. He even had songs cut by Elvis. He wrote Conway Twitty's first #1 song. So, so I think that I was sitting around thinking, man, it would be really cool for me to go ahead and do this. Which, by the way, I think that I might still do that in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But but I had Lua come over and I said, "Hey, let's try Summer Breeze." We were on the Seals and Crofts kick for a second, and I said, "Come on over and see what you think. I'd love to put you on this recording." And we started singing, and man, it just was like magical. I'm like, "Uh-oh, this is cool," And so I put aside the Seals Family album thing for a second, and that was 4 or 5 years ago, and we've been going strong ever since, and so it's been really, really cool to slip into this mode, and, I know Dash come to see us when we played a show in Fort Worth, Texas, and he absolutely loved it. It was so it was just like, "Oh, man," and I and unfortunately, Jimmy knew all about it as well. Jimmy loved it. He's like, "Oh man, I want to meet Brady." And I had never met Jimmy. I had
Oh,
met
wow.
Dan, but I'd never met Jimmy. And it was during COVID, by the way. And I thought, "Oh man, I got to go meet Jimmy. I got to go meet you because he's just north of town here in Tennessee." And so we kept on saying, "Yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to do it." And then bless his heart, he passed away. And to this day, it's just one of the biggest regrets
Oh,
not to just go out there and visit him. I just didn't want to give him COVID or something.
yeah.
And but but anyway, it's been so cool. And we've got YouTube stuff, we got Facebook stuff. So all the listeners out there, come and check us out and follow us and stuff because that's a really cool project as well.
Yeah, sounds like it. That's incredible. Well, was it lovely having you on the show? I have one more question that's kind of a fun wrap up. So, you've done so many things from a very young age all the way till now. But what is one thing as a songwriter or an artist that you haven't done yet that is like on your wish list that you would love to do?
Oh my gosh, that's a really really good one. Gosh, I've always had this love for the Beatles, and as a country artist, I think my top notch country artist would be Willie Nelson. I loved Willie, and I got the opportunity to actually do a duet with Willie for a Hot Apple Pie project, and he sang on a song that I wrote, and was just I could have gone to honky tonk heaven. It was just I was just like, my God, that's just so cool, and but I've always wanted to meet and just chill a little bit with Paul McCartney. You know, I've just I don't know. I just think that they've always had such a huge influence on me and music itself. Um, I would love to do that, and I don't know if I'll ever get the chance, but boy, that'd be great.
All right, well, we heard it right here. Let's manifest. You get to meet
Yes,
Paul McCartney.
that's right.
Oh, wow. Well, it was awesome having you on. Can you please share with everybody where they can find you online and check out all that you do?
Well, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, thank you so much for having
Oh,
me.
of
I really,
course.
really appreciate it. It's been so awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, just bradyseals.com. I mean, you can find everything there. You can find all of my social media outlets. I'm on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all of those places. And same thing, you can find out where I'm going to be. My touring schedule is on there. Seals and Crofts 2 has a website as well if you want to check that out. But yeah, come check me out. I'm on Spotify as well. If you want to hear the new single, "Deeper Shade of Blue Collar," but my website is probably the best place.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me. It was such an honor chatting with you. And of course, until next time, stay
Stay
right
right on
on
track.
track.